This topic of recognizing and using our gifts is one of my absolute favorite topics in the world to talk about, to think about, because I think there's some nuggets that, for me anyways, have helped me understand better who I am, what I have to offer, what makes me me, what makes me unique, what makes me a valued, contributing child of God. And so, as I was thinking about the idea of using our gifts, um, I thought, well, the first thing we've got to do is we've got to understand what our gifts are. And I thought the firster thing, even before understanding what our gifts are, we need to understand who we are. This is a picture of my sweet Carissa, and that's only because I found a picture of sweet Chris, so very young. And I love the idea of the pureness, the innocence of a child. To use our talents, we must first know what they are, but first we need to know who we are. And who we are is we are divine children of heavenly parents. This is Carissa just last and her sweet husband, Race, and they're a prince and princess. They are divine sons of and daughters. We are divine sons and daughters of heavenly parents who love us. And the thing about that is it's something that I think we know in our head, but I'm not sure that we always know it in our hearts, in our being, in our bodies. And so I'm going to share some stories. I'm going to talk a little bit about my experiences. I want to invite you to have some of the same kinds of experiences that I have. I'm not special. I'm not unique in these ways. I am just a normal guy. And a few years ago, I was a member of the High Council. I was assigned to work with the youth, and that gave me an opportunity to go to girls' camp. Girls' camp is a little bit different than scout camp. The focus is different, the purpose is entirely different, and things have shifted a little bit over the last few years. But back then, um, we had two priesthood holders that got to go. At least for our stake, for our camp, there were two of us, and one of the primary purposes for us was just to be a support to the young women, to the camp leaders, and part of that support was to offer blessings. There was this one day, it was a kind of a crazy day. It was Thursday towards the end of camp. I was actually preparing a mini class. I was going to be teaching the young women some sign language. We were going to talk about High on a Mountaintop, that hymn, and what it represents. And I was going to teach them some basic signs. And in the moment, in the exact minute that I was supposed to start that class, I got a message. Somebody flagged me down. Brother Williams, we have a young woman who needs a blessing. So now I've got these two kind of competing priorities. I've got this class that I've had the assignment to present, and I have a young woman who needs a blessing. And this was not the popular girl. This was not the even necessarily well-liked girl. She was kind of the weird kid. And she had just a difficult situation. It was a little bit frustrating for her. And I remember sitting down with her and with her leaders and with the other brother who was there to help support with the priesthood. And we got to know a little bit about her. And I caught my mind wandering to what else I was supposed to be doing in that moment. And I remember thinking, she deserves 100% of my attention. And so as I and Christian, the other priesthood holder, and I, we would take turns, and this was my turn to actually be voice for the blessing. And so as I got to sit down with her, get to know her very briefly, I remember thinking, that's taken care of. This class is all going to be fine. They don't need me right now. And I'm going to give this young woman my full attention. So the experience that I have a really hard time describing it because there are no words, but I'm going to describe the best way that I can the experience that I had. So as we sat in this cabin, she sat on a chair and we put our hands on her head, and I had the opportunity to start giving her a blessing. I felt how deeply she's loved by her Father in heaven. It wasn't words that said she is a beloved daughter of heavenly parents. I experienced that feeling of deep, deep love that her Father in heaven has for her. I experienced it. And I don't have any way of describing that other than I felt it. I know how her Father in heaven feels about her. I know how her heavenly parents feel about her. This unusual, this strange personality, this weird kid is deeply loved by her heavenly parents. Sometime after that, I don't remember what was going on in my life, but I remember things were just, I was a little bit in a low point. I was just feeling kind of forgotten and not noticed. And I remember kneeling down myself and just asking my Father in heaven, do you even know who I am? Do you even care who I am? And again, I don't know that I can put it into words other than I can just say, I know how he feels about me. I know who I am to him. And so the great thing about having those two experiences is, number one, I know how he feels about me, and I know how he feels about you because he's our Father and he loves us deeply. And I think he wants us to know that. I think he wants us to know us. He wants us to know what makes us divine and special and important and valuable and valued. I think he'll share that with us. So, the next thing about our gifts, once we have an idea of who we are, then we can start to understand really the importance, the significance of what we bring to this earthly experience, what we can offer to the world. And one of the things that I've discovered about our own gifts is it is hard to figure them out because if it's a natural gift or talent, it is something that's so easy for us. We don't think there's anything special about it. So, as an example, when I was in high school, I never wrote a final draft, or I'm sorry, I never wrote a rough draft of any paper. I never wrote one. The teachers would always say, you need to start with an outline, you need to write a rough draft, and then you start doing editing, and then you write a final draft. I never did that because I just had the ability to sit down and write a final draft. That was, and I had no idea that I had any talent with that until I actually had written a book and I was talking to the publisher, and he said, Ken, one of the things that has really impressed me about what you've put together is how seamless some of the changes that he'd asked for were. It didn't look like I just slapped a few things on. I completely replaced a chapter. I implemented a whole new strategy in several other chapters of the book. And he said, it was, and it only took me a couple of days. It did not take a long time. And I had no idea that this was a gift. So that's one of the things that um, is important for us to realize is that our gifts to us will seem like it's no big deal. It's so easy. Why is this hard for anybody else? And that's a clue that it's a natural talent. So something that is kind of fun to do is reach out to people that know you, people that like parents, close friends. Could be a teacher, could be somebody from church, it could be somebody that you work with or somebody that you interact with on a regular basis, and just ask, what are some of the talents that I have, the natural abilities that maybe I don't notice? And you may start to see themes. The thing that was really interesting for me, I did this just for fun the other day, and I reached out to a couple of my kids and a couple of close friends, somebody that I work with. And the thing that was really interesting is I got the same answer from all of them. And I got some variations and I got a couple different things added. But the thing that was the same is something that I would have not recognized as a special gift. I'm going to talk about some of my own gifts only because it gives me an opportunity to share some stories and hopefully help you understand how recognizing your own gifts can help you bless the lives of other people. If you think about the parable of the talents, for example, the purpose of having our talents and our gifts is not for us to gain notoriety. It's not for us to necessarily increase our wealth or our stature. It's to bless the lives of other people. And in the scriptures, we have some great examples of talents. We have the gift of faith. We have the gift of tongues. We have the gift of charity and all sorts of things, a lot of churchy things. But there are so many different gifts that we have access to. One of my gifts is the ability to surprise people. And I like to call it the ability to push buttons. And there's a way that you can use this that can be hurtful, but there's a way that you can use it that's really helpful as well. These are some of the examples of when I have had an opportunity to surprise people. I love the surprise. So the center picture of me sitting there on my phone with the green and, and black striped socks, I got a message, an email that Hank Smith was going to be presenting a talk with Turtle House, and he had another speaker with him. The speaker was Mark Williams. Well, I know Mark. I've known him his whole life. And I thought, because of my work schedule and my vacation and time that I had off, I was in a position where I could just show up. And so I did. I I had this imagined in my head. I was going to go sit on the front row, and I was going to just be front and center when he walked out on stage and started speaking. I thought it was going to be a great reveal. He ruined it for me. He actually took this picture from backstage. He texted me and said, "Are you in Utah?" I gave a little bit of a incomplete truth. I said, "Well, I had a layover," which was true. The layover was 2 days. But he saw me before I wanted to do my big reveal, but just such a great experience to hear him present on the Turtle House stage and to have that kind of a connection. The picture right below that, I served my mission in Lisbon, Portugal. And the temple open house was special for me because my mission many years ago, I wanted to make sure that we were working towards a temple. It finally has happened. The temple was dedicated 2-3 years ago, something like that. Well, during the open house, a young woman from my ward here in the Indianapolis area was serving her mission in Lisbon. And her assignment at the time was in the temple open house. And so I showed up at the temple to go through the open house, and there's Sister Jensen. And it was just such a great experience. I knew she was serving there. I didn't know if I would have an opportunity to see her, but we had just a great moment. The bottom left picture, that's Carissa on her mission. She served in Temple Square. And Temple Square missionaries have a really interesting opportunity to connect with family members. And it was a prompting. A lot of these surprises that I make come as a result of a prompting that I've received. And I had the thought, actually, Carissa had said she just missed my cooking. And I'd made a dinner for Easter, and she said that, "Oh, I just love your salmon," which is what I'd made. So I thought, I'm just gonna hop out there. It was a quick flight. I fly standby because of my job at FedEx. I'm able to do that. And I didn't know if it was gonna work out, but I just had this kind of a nudging that I'm gonna go surprise her. I was gonna go out, I was gonna make her dinner, drop it off, and she wouldn't even necessarily know that I was there. Well, the flight that I got on had a young man from my ward who was getting ready to go to the MTC, and that's the picture right above that, me standing next to the young missionary. And so my surprise, or my intention to surprise my daughter, ended up in me being able to connect with this young missionary. He didn't have a ride to the MTC, so I took him to the MTC. We went out for lunch before that, and my mom was in town. We got some chocolate chip cookies, which were fantastic, and I got to drop him off at the MTC because his parents didn't have that opportunity to take time away to fly him out. And then the thing that I love about that story is that I was the home teacher for his parents in college, and I got to continue to minister to them. The picture on the far right was just a fun picture. I found that in the Ensign magazine after conference. That person with the back to the camera, that's me talking to Carissa. You can see her over my left shoulder. And we're just talking. This was when I went out to visit her at a general conference. And these are just a couple of other things that I've learned. I had the last Fireside that I did back in November. Mark had talked about, he had asked me if I had any surprises. Well, just before that, I had one of my most favorite surprises. Mark had been asking me to join him on a cruise, and I couldn't make it work. And then I could. Things changed. I was able to make it work, but I didn't tell him. My two sisters were on the cruise, and as they were going down this slide on the right-hand side, were gathered with some friends, and I showed up. And I wish I had video. We have a reenactment, but I wish I had the video of the reveal when Mark saw that I was there. It's one of the great joys in my life. The right-hand picture there is chocolate cake. I love making chocolate cake. I love sharing chocolate cake with people. And sometimes the Spirit speaks to me. And when I consider who do I know who needs chocolate cake, the answer is going to come to me. And almost every Sunday I make chocolate cakes and I share them, and there may be occasions that I actually mail them out to people. And so I've absolutely loved that. I've had other experiences where I went out to surprise my parents just before my grandma passed away. And I didn't know this, but my dad was getting ready to leave town to visit my sister. He went with Mark. That left my mom with her mother-in-law, who was dying, and she didn't feel like she had a lot of support. She's a very traditional very strong in the faith woman, and she just felt like something was missing when my dad and my brother, who both held the priesthood, left to go visit my sister. And on a totally unrelated prompting, I felt like I had to go out and say goodbye to grandma. And I showed up just a matter of hours after my dad and after Mark left, and was there to be a support. I did get to say goodbye to my grandma. It was a wonderful experience, but it was years later that I found out that I was there as a support to my mother. One of the things that uh, I referenced earlier, I asked several people about what they saw as my gifts and talents. And the thing that was consistent, several people said my ability to connect with other people. And the thing that is wonderful about learning what your unique gifts are is as you use them, as you develop them, as you, a way I like to think about it is you kind of lean into them. You take advantage of that natural gift that you have. You bless people's lives. And so if I know about, and then I use my ability to connect with other people, help them feel how valued they are as children of heavenly parents, help them feel like they're loved and they're appreciated. That is a way that I can help share God's love. It's a way that I can help share the kind of experience that I think we all want to have. And as we use our talents, we bless people's lives. I think that's the whole purpose of us having gifts. I think that's the purpose of us using our gifts is we have the opportunity to bless people's lives. I sat down and I just spent about 15 minutes trying to come up with different gifts that people might have. And so some of us have the gift of humility or creating business or listening or using technology or learning or ministering or laughing or raising kids or using music or having awe or wonder, being graceful, having a vision, being able to pray and connect with deity, raising animals, raising plants, baking, the gift of having a vision, the gift of storytelling, the gift of understanding and connecting with people, the gift of quilting or sewing. There's so many different gifts. And so as you discover what your gifts are, use them, learn how you can bless other people's lives because they will help you understand better your own identity as a divine son or daughter of heavenly parents. And they will help you bless the lives of other people in their quest to understand their identity as beloved sons and daughters of God. It is a rich, rewarding experience to be a part of that process. And I say that in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.